All right, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for this webinar on reporting in Arlo. Before we kick it off, just some real quick introductions. I'm Nick. I'm one of the support team based in the UK. I see a lot of you that I've spoken to before. It's great to have you with us. For those of you who I haven't spoken to before or are new to the platform, it's fantastic. Welcome. Thank you for joining. With me today, I have Jarrod. He's our Global Service Manager. He's going to be taking one of the last sections of this webinar. He's been heavily involved in sort of building this out with me, so it's great to have someone with his expertise and his knowledge on board. So reporting in Arlo, why is that what we want to speak about today? Reports are a fantastically useful tool. When we think about what Arlo's really there for you to do, it's to help you to automate and streamline your business, whether that's quickly scheduling courses and getting them up onto your website and making it easier for your customers to register on that through the checkout, whether it's the automated communication, the automated order management, leads, sending out certificates based on criteria, certification. These are all things which Arlo is very good at taking off your shoulders and taking care of for you. But while that's happening, it's collecting and aggregating an awful lot of data. That could be data on your courses and how they're performing. It could be data on who your customers belong to in an organization. Or it could be data to do with the financials of your organization, to do with the marketing side. That's all the time that's coming in. And while it's really important and it's very easy to get wrapped up in the here and the now and the near future, it's also important to take a step back and to think about and look at past performance and look at the future potential performance. And it's through reporting we can do this. We can gain insight into how your training company has performed and identify those areas where you're doing well and learn the lessons and the tricks from those, and then use reporting to identify those areas that might not be performing as well, those courses which aren't performing as well, those organizations which aren't paying as effectively, and to use the lessons and the tricks to improve those weaker areas, or maybe even make the decision to cut them. So reporting gives us the ability to have a deep perspective on how you've performed in the past and use that to sort of create actions and decisions that help you perform better in the future. So today we're going to sort of go through reporting as a whole, and then we're going to take a bit of a deeper dive to hopefully give you a better understanding, if you've used it before, on how you can leverage reporting. And for those of you that haven't used it before, hopefully you're going to feel comfortable leaving this webinar and going away tomorrow and starting to build some of your own reports. So let's have a look at what we're going to cover. We're very quickly going to touch on an introduction to reports, where we can find them, the difference between basic and advanced. We're then going to spend the bulk of this webinar looking at some common reporting scenarios, things which we think are likely that you're going to encounter, and we'll go through building those reports and looking at some of the uses of them. We'll then touch on saving favorites and scheduling reports, some very powerful tools in there, very underutilized, something we'd love to see people using more of. And then Jarrod's going to take over and look at the extracting the business intelligence report. So once we've found the information we want, how do we analyze it so we can actually derive those decisions and create those actions and those tasks that help you improve your training business? And more importantly, at the end of the day, are helping you sell more training. It's the name of the game as it is. So without further ado, should we get stuck in? Introduction to reports. First off, I just want to give you a quick idea of where you can find reports in Arlo. If you're not familiar, they've got their own page up on the top navigation, just next to settings. Left-hand side, when you get here, you've got your categories, each of your reports, names, and then there's a high-level description to give you a rough idea of what you should be using that report for. But a lot of them have quite a great degree of flexibility in them. You're going to see the advanced tag here against a few. That's because some reports have both basic and advanced. Some only are basic and some are only advanced. You'll sort of learn those as you use them. We're going to come back to this on the right-hand side, but we'll just touch on the fact that we've got our favorited reports here, and we also have our scheduled reports. Like I said, we'll look at those in a bit. Hopefully that gives you a good understanding of where to find them, and you can quickly find the one that you need. Let's take a look at a basic and an advanced report. We're going to use the registration list for this. We'll kick it off with the basic report. Basic reports are fantastic if you've never used reporting before in Arlo, or if you have a very quick query you want to answer, right? How many people do I have starting events in the next month? Well, I can actually just press that button and run a report, right? That's going to tell me exactly that. Fantastic for that. However, more often than not, we want to go into a little bit more depth than that. So if we click this more options button here, we can see we suddenly expand into a lot more. This is roughly broken down into sort of like 3 main areas for controlling the report. The top area here, we have our query area. This is what we're actually going out to asking information about. How many people of X type are attending which event, how many people have completed this type of event, how many registrations belonging to a certain organization, so on and so forth. All these are predefined filters which we can use. They're either lookup filters, so we can type in something, so we can have a look for Felicity Merrington. It's going to set, and it will look them up for you and do a best match. They are drop down, tick box, or date range. So they're very easy to use. Once we've built our query, we then want to specify what information we're including in that report. And that's where this column section is. So here, across multiple entities, we see we've got the registrant, we've got some order details, some event, and we also have some presenter and contact information. We can tick and untick as we need. So let's say I want to know their position, I want to know the status of their order, and I don't want to know the time zone. Right? So I can just real quickly include and remove different columns to your report. And then finally, just this little section down in here, we have our group by and our sort by. So that just helps make it a little clearer. So let's say we select event. And then we actually do have these controls. This is sort of like a subsection. So this is where we control, save, and export the information from a report. So let's say I'll run that same query, right? That we are everyone who's going to be starting an event in the next month. We've got some slightly different columns now, and we've grouped them by event, and we can see it's different. So each event is the heading, and then every time you run a basic report, it produces it in this very nicely formatted manner. A lot of these, anything that's blue, that's a link you can click through on, so we can go check out that course, and we can go check out order 20, so we can see who else is registered in here, take care of any tasks we need to, and we can manage this order if we see there's something we need to do as well. Like I said, really useful for getting a quick overview and a quick insight to information. Once I build it, might need to export that. I can just hit the export Excel or PDF. These are pre-formatted sheets or PDFs, so they're really useful to be able to send, especially to an external party from your organization, for nice and clearly laid out information. But what you'll notice, or might have noticed already with the basic report, is everything's predefined. So if there's a condition in here that I want to use in my query that isn't available, then I can't add it in. If there's a column of information to do with, let's say, some expanded presenter or contact information, which isn't in here, then I can't do anything about it. But that's fine, because that's why we have the advanced reports. And we'll check this out now. An advanced report is actually much the same as the basic report. There's 3 main sections. It's just used in a very different way. At the top, we've got our condition. This is where we build our queries. We have all conditions and any. We then have our column control section. And then finally, we've got our sorting and grouping and export controls down here. The difference with an advanced report is it gives you the maximum flexibility. So straight away, when I want to build a query, I'm going to select a condition. And a condition can call from any number of different entities. Where we had the fixed limit for the basic reports, here we have a lot more flexibility. So let's say I want to create the same report that I did in the basic one. Everyone who's starting an event in the next month. So I can choose the event as the entity I'm going to query. I then choose the field that I want to query itself, and we can see there's quite a few here. It could take quite a while to find it. Well, I can just search for it. So created, I say, right, an event created date. Sorry, I actually want to go for start date. There we go. So an event start date. As you can see, it's really easy to switch as well. And because this is a date value, this is the like the rules box. This is where we're specifying the rule in which we'll measure a value against. And because these are dates, they're going to be showing up things that relate to dates. So I can say is within next period, and it also creates this. And then one, I don't want a day. What I'm actually looking for is within the next month. So right there, I can just run this, and that's going to produce all the results of everyone who's starting an event in the next month. Awesome. Let's say I want to get a little bit more specific and include just a certain type of template. Well, I can select event again, and this time I'm going to search for template. And because this is a different type of value, so this is text value, I have a different set of rules. So I'm going to say equals, and this time we see we've got a search box. So it's going to give me a drop down, but then I can type something in, and there we go. So I can now look at everyone who's part of the HTML for beginners. And for good measure, I actually want to make sure that I'm going to not include anyone who's cancelled. So this time I selected the registration entity. I can type in status here. Oh, sorry, status. This time I'm going to use not equals, and this is a drop-down box. So I'm going to select cancelled, and then we'll run that report or a preview of it, and there we go, that's everyone. What happens, let's say, if I want to include people from multiple different templates? At the moment, if I added in a second template to this all, those people would have had to register on the HTML for beginners and the other one. Whereas if I add them down into this any, I'm going to specify that they can be registered on the HTML for beginners or one of the others. So let's do the same thing. Let's add in event. Let's search for the template equals HTML. And then let's add that other HTML one we've got. I believe it's the experts. Template equals HTML for experts. Awesome. So now we're going to return everyone who's attending both of these events, sorry, either of these events within the next month. Let's say I want a little bit of other information. We see here that it comes with a set of default information columns. This is much like the tick box. Instead, we have a much greater choice in what we want to include. We can see there's a vast array. Just like the queries up in here or the conditions, I can search. Let's say I want to get someone's phone number. There we go. So I can pull in their work phone. Or maybe I want to know the organization that they work for. So I can do that. But this isn't the order I wanted in, right? I actually want their full name to come up first or next to the code. Then I want their organization name and their email and their phone number. You can see I can just drag and drop these columns around to reorder them. So then if I preview this, now we see, right, full name straight away. We've got their organization, their contact information. Then we can see some of the information about the event they're attending. And I could add in more, right? I could start adding in some order information. We see there's a lot that you can include in there. Maybe it's time to do the billing contact you need. But you get the idea. Using the queries up here, we can either have the same sort of high-level quick snapshot information, or we can become very granular and very deep dive and specific about what we are querying within the platform. And then we can return a large amount of information. You can have up to 500 columns within an advanced one. I can order that as I need. I can specify whether it's going to be a spreadsheet or a CSV. CSV is obviously better for further analysis if you're exporting it. And when I just hit the export button, I press this here, it's going to download that right away for me. And voila, I can use that how I need. So that's a basic and an advanced report. Hopefully you've got a reasonable understanding, sort of like a foundation understanding of what both are, when one is sort of more advantageous to the other. So let's wrap that all up with a quick summary. So basic report, predefined filters and columns, very user-friendly. You can export that as that pre-formatted PDF or Excel. However, it does have the drawbacks, might not have everything you need. It is designed to run on a smaller scale. It's only going to produce 10,000 lines. They do take a little while to generate the report sometimes. So like I said at the very beginning there, a basic report's fantastic for first-time users or very quick snapshot information you want. When we want to start going into a bit more depth, that's where the advanced reports come in. They've got the custom filters that you can build spanning multiple different entities, column output, so you can choose what information and what order you want to include. They will query your data very quickly. So if you're looking at, say, 50,000 registrations, or you're looking at 20,000 orders, a basic report might struggle with that to an extent, whereas the advanced report is not going to at all. There we go, it pulls it through very quickly, and that custom order. However, there is one significant con of an advanced report, and they are a little harder to use. There's a learning curve to them. Not to worry, we're going to address that in this webinar. In fact, as we go through this next section, the common reporting scenarios, we'll take a look at how we can use both basic and advanced reports to gain a fantastic insight into the way your training business is performing. So, shall we get started? All right, so we'll start off the reporting scenarios with registration reports. And from this point kind of onwards, I want you to imagine I'm more of a training company than I am, an Arlo support member. And we'll phrase these in sort of real world examples, which I would consider or are likely to encounter. So registration reports are great for internal reporting on how your registrants are behaving and performing. They're also very useful for external queries. And in this case, DesignQ, an organization that sends some of their staff members to attend training at my company, has got in touch and asked us to find or to report back to them how many people have registered to attend an event from their organization since the 1st of April. It's quite a simple query for us to build out. But it's easy enough for us to use the registration list basic version, and we can take a look, and there's two things we need to filter down by here: a specific organization, design queue, and when they've registered from. But we can see straight away the information available to us in sort of the condensed section. That's not quite going to cut it, so we'll open up the more options. We'll satisfy that organization condition first, so I can just search for design. Got a few different ones. We're going to use their head office, and then for the date filter, we're interested in from when they've registered from, so we want to use this one. We can expand that, and we can choose the date, April the 1st, right up until today. And let's just say we're going to leave it as the default information. It didn't specify any extra or less information. So I'll just run the report. And once that produces, I can export it probably as an Excel, send it off to the HR manager or the learning manager at DesignQ, and they look at it and go, oh, okay, great. But actually, we also need to know which department everyone's part of, because we use department to assign training budget to. And you say, okay, not a problem. We can do that. We'll open this up. We'll have a quick search for department, and we can see that there's actually no results. So it's not an available column or condition we can query by, and that's because it's actually a piece of contact information. It's contact information related to organization information. So it's not included within the registration basic report. So here's an example of where we need to jump across and actually use an advanced registration report, because it gives us that cross-entity queryability and cross-entity options for columns. So we're building much the same report. We are looking at the organization first, so we can select contact as the entity, because then I can search for their employment organization. I'm going to do a lookup for design queue head offices right there. And then I want to look at their registration and their created date. And I could say it was on or after. This is the rule I want. Same again, I'm just going to select April the 1st, and that's on or after, so up to today. And then down here, we're happy with all of this information, but we this time want to include, department. So there we go, registration, contact, their employment, and their department. Let's say we'll pull that across to here, along with their full name. And we'll put these two over here. So we've built that report, less than a minute. And there we go. Everyone we need to see with all of their departments right there. Export that out, send that across to DesignQ. That's the information at their fingertips available to them. So what you just saw there were two very quick and easy to build examples of information which you can provide to your organizations and your learners, right? You might have not have considered that as an option, and that's now something that either you have been asked in the past and you didn't realize you could do, or you haven't been asked and you can turn around to some key organizations that you work with and say, hey, would you be interested in a report of everyone who's attended in the last 12 months, or everyone who's going to attend in the next 12 months? And later on, we'll learn how you can do that and say, well, would you be interested in that on a regular basis? Would you want that every quarter or every month? Would you like to be emailed everyone who's attending? And you can do that for external partners, or maybe internally. If you're a large training organization, you want to know a certain venue, how many people are registered to attend to that certain venue on a monthly basis. Well, that's a report you can build out using this advanced registration report. And the more you think about the pieces of information that would be useful to you, the more you realize that building out advanced reports is incredibly useful. This is just two examples which hopefully lay the foundation for you to be able to come up with more relevant examples for yourself. So registration is just one side of the Arlo platform. Obviously, an incredibly important part of your business is the financial aspect. And that's why we're going to take a look at a couple of order reports. And this is where you can start to get a very good understanding of how you're performing. And in fact, in this instance, I want to know how much actual revenue our training business has generated in the last 12 months. That's how much money has been paid to us. Well, again, similarly to that first report that we had with registration, this is quite a simple report for orders. So we can use the order list report for this, the basic one. We open it up. Again, the sort of high level queries aren't really useful to us, but what we are interested in is this paid date one. So from here, I can say I'm interested in all orders that have been paid from, let's say, September the 1st, 2019. There we go. Oh, yep, click that. All the way through to today. Awesome. And let's say I want to include the order contact details as well. And the paid date, sorry. The date paid. There we go. Run that report. Go. There we go. £22,769, dollars, euros, yen, whichever currency it is that you're working in. In under a minute again, I now have a very accurate understanding, including credit notes of, you can see here, this is an example of credit note, it's a negative value of the total amount of money that we have actually made in the last 12 months. I could export this, send it out to our accounts department. They can review that against the accounts platform, make sure that those figures match up. Let's say they do, and then they come back and say, well, that's fantastic. We know how much money we have made, but there's a lot of outstanding balances due to us as well. How do we find out about those? Well, we can see here that we can actually look at outstanding balances, and we've got the billing contact. But if we open this back up again, what we don't have is the billing contact details. So we want to be able to find out how much money is owed to us in the last 12 months, and who owes it to us, and how we can get in touch with those people. So we're going to build a very similar report, but it's an advanced order list report this time. So we'll scroll back down to here, and we could say the first thing we're interested in is actually the due date. So if I open up the order and I type in payment due date, we want to know everyone which is got a due date on or before today. Right, that makes sense. Every order that hasn't been paid but should have been from today backwards. Right. The next thing we need to know is that they do actually owe us. So if I put in total due, and I can say not equals 0. So what we're specifying here is that there is a balance owed to us, right? And then finally, it's just pretty good practice to include a not equals status of cancelled, right? So we don't want to accidentally include all these orders which have been cancelled, and the accounts department chase up people. They're like, well, no, we cancelled that order. So now we have a query which is saying for every order that has a balance due to us, that had a payment due date before today or on or before today and hasn't been cancelled, show me those people, right? Wonderful. If we run this, we see we get that bill to contact, but no contact information. So if I type in email here, bill to contact email, let's say we want their phone number as well. We won't take their home phone, we'll take their work phone, maybe their mobile as well. And I'll drag those all across here. So we'll have full name, email, work phone, mobile phone, and I can preview that, right? Wonderful, there we go. We've got their contact information, we've got the amount that they're due, we've got the order code, the total amount, and the status of each one. So I can export this, I can send that to our accounts department now, and they can start chasing up the people who owe us money. Right. They can also run this themselves as well, and they could change the sort results so they could prioritize by people who owe us the most, or maybe I want to include the due date as a column, and then I could pull that across to here as well. So we'd have the order date and the due date and run that report again. And then they can filter this down inside of Excel to those people who are the most overdue payment, and they can follow up those people to start with first. So there you have two examples of a report, one which is very useful for you to gain an understanding of how much money you've actually received from selling your training and delivering it, and then how much money is outstanding, which is often, in many cases, a more important figure, so you can chase up and collect that. Order reports provide an overview of your total financial situation. However, where they fall short is helping to provide a revenue-based summary on a per course basis. So where the performance reports come in. As a training provider, it's really important for you to have a breakdown of which of your courses are generating the most revenue. And there are a suite of reports that can help you do that in Arlo. The one that I want to take a look at here is the course performance report. This is an enterprise-only level report. So for those of you on enterprise, this is available. If you're considering, if you're not on enterprise and considering this, the performance reports are a great reason to upgrade, among many other features. They are here to give you that per course revenue-based insight. So we're going to have a date filter. Courses starting from October 1st of October 2019 through to, we can update that to today, change from its defaults. And in the column option, it's quite simple. I want to include all the registrations. This is going to give me a good overview of how many people are actually coming and completing their courses with us. And then on the order side, order line value, this is the actual build amount, so the total orders, the credit line value, so how much we've had to refund or are holding as credit for a future order now. And then the total, that is the value, so that is orders minus credit note. And then I'll just shrink that, we'll run that report, and there we go, right? I now have, for the last 12 months, a really clear and useful insight to which courses are making me the most money. So we can see if we have a look down here, here we go, full stack principles on October, when was that? 17th of October this year, 14 people completed. It's 4,800 originally, we've refunded at 813. It's given us a total of 4,000. But then up here we can identify that we ran another one of those on the 10th, but for some reason we didn't charge for any. Maybe I'd want to go investigate that. And then we can compare that, say the HTML for beginners on the 12th. Well, I had 10 registrations, only 4 less for that, but I'm only taking roughly, well, in fact, almost exactly half the amount that I am for the full stack principles. Maybe I want to have a look into why that is not such a profitable course for me to be running. I say profitable, this is obviously only showing me revenue on a per course basis and on a total basis as well, right? You might want to learn a little bit more about the profitability of each course. And that's where Jarrod's going to show you how we can combine different reports later on in the webinar, in fact, very shortly, to extract both this revenue information and the expense information so you can start to get a better understanding of your course profitability on a per course basis. But here, again, like many of those other ones, you can see incredibly quickly, I've now got a very good understanding of which of my courses are really revenue producing, and therefore which one should be potentially focusing on selling more of, and which one should we maybe be reducing or cutting entirely. That's all of the scenarios covered, right? From that, I hope you now feel either a lot more confident in using reports if you've used them before and you've got some ideas on some new ones to build. If you've not used reports in the past, I hope this has given you a good sense of the things that you can do. You're going to go away and come up with some more ideas yourself, ideas which are more relevant and sort of contextually relevant to your organization. There's one little last bit from me, favoriting and scheduled reports. You spend a lot of time building reports in Arlo. You might be building a really complicated advanced report with a number of different conditions to build a very large and detailed query. Well, you're not going to want to build that again and again and again, right? So we can save a report to become a favorite, and that's this bar over here on the side. So I'll jump back into one of these course performance reports. And here for a basic one, there's actually 2 options. You'll see save as default, and in this instance I can edit as a favorite because it's already saved. If I save this as a default, what I'm actually saying is every time I open this report from that left-hand list, I want these as the predefined settings, right? That's why I already had these dates within here. Whereas if I'm saving it as a favorite, it's going to look exactly the same as this edit. That's going to pop up, and whatever I've built out here, I can save this, and let's say I'm going to call this version 3, or maybe I'm going to save this as Q4, right? So I'd only set this date range as a Q, save for changes, or save it as a new report. And we can see here it's now available to me on the side, right? And we can go through and you can see this is how we saved our scenarios to run through these. That's great. Okay, for an advanced report, I'll very quickly show you under the registration list. Actually, it's exactly the same. I'd build out my report. I'd click the save to favorites here. The only difference is it's a slightly different looking box. Right? The description field, that's just for internal reference. No one else will see that. I've built out a report, I've saved it as a favorite. Sometimes I want to run it whenever I need, but I also need to run that report on a regular basis. Okay, well, not a problem, we can do that as well. I can use this schedule report button. And this is the same screen you'll get from a basic or advanced once you click schedule. You can see right in here, I have a recipient field, so this is whoever I want to send that to as an email. That could be someone inside the organization or outside. I can use semicolons to add multiple people. I can then set my schedule, the actual amount of time, whether it's a daily, the maximum you can run a scheduled report is once daily, or I can define it on a weekly or a monthly basis. And then if it's a basic report, I'm going to specify whether it's going out as an Excel or a PDF. For an advanced report, we saw inside we could choose whether a spreadsheet or a CSV. So the advanced report's much better suited if you want to schedule them out on a weekly basis to be further analyzed. And then if you send them insecurely, that's just going to go as the file format. If you send them securely, you can add a password to it. That will go out as an encrypted zip file, which people will need to use the password to open up. An awesome thing with advanced reports, say exported as CSVs and scheduled, is now we work with Zapier as well. You can actually email that to Zapier. That can receive it, save it in, say, a Google Drive automatically for you, or create a spreadsheet straight away for you on a templated spreadsheet. and you can use that information further forward. So there's a sort of pretty unlimited amount of possibilities for scheduled reports when you start using it alongside Zapier as well. But favorites and schedules, if they're available to you, I highly recommend using them as well. Real time savers. That is everything from my side. I'm now going to hand it over to Jarrod. He's going to take you through what you can do with this data once you've built a report outside of Arlo. So, Jarrod, take it away.
Thanks, Nick, for that great overview of the reports. And hello to everyone who's joining us today. My name's Jarrod. If you missed the start of the webinar, I manage our customer support and success teams. So I've had a lot of experience dealing with customer reports over the many years that I've been with Arlo. So it's great to be able to get in front of you guys and talk you through some business intelligence examples today. Just before we move on quickly, Nick's obviously had limited time to touch on some of the reporting scenarios so far. And obviously the Arlo reporting engine is, very big and you can do lots with it. So if you are still struggling, running a certain report, or you've got a question about how to get the data that you need out of the system, feel free to get in touch with our support team at support@arlo.co. They'll be more than happy to help you out. So definitely get in touch with them if you need to. Now, in terms of this next segment, business intelligence, we've looked at so far in this webinar how to use Arlo reports to, put in predefined queries and get the information out that you need, which is really, really good. What I'm going to be doing is taking a bit of a deeper dive into how to use some of the additional features within Arlo to combine with the reports that we have, so that you can get out some really, really valuable business intelligence to help make you better informed training decisions essentially for your business. So just in terms of the scenarios that we're going to be looking at today, there's three key scenarios. The first one is course profitability. So Nick's shown you the performance report a bit earlier on, which does a really good job of showing you how much revenue each course is bringing in. But that's sort of only half the picture. What you don't have in that report is obviously information about what it's costing you to run the course, and therefore is that course profitable overall. So I'm going to be taking you through a way that you can actually use Arlo to record expenses, pull data out about those expenses, and then combine it with the revenue data that you have to determine if a course is profitable or not. So very neat stuff. Occupancy rates, this is quite a neat report. So we're going to be looking at which of your courses are consistently, having the highest occupancy rates. Who are the, how many people are coming to each of those courses compared to the maximum limit that you have? Which courses, on the other hand, are not getting anywhere near the limits that you have, and do you need to make some changes there to make sure that you can accommodate the right audiences? And the last example was a quick one. So just a way to quickly extract your top paying customers. So which customers are consistently putting through, the most orders or paying you the most for the courses that are being put through in the Arlo checkout. These are obviously the customers that you want to maintain a really good relationship with, the ones you want to be reaching out to and offering things like, special promotions to get them to keep coming back, vouchers, special promotions, heaps of things that you can do there to, to maintain that business. So let's just jump over into course profitability and start off with this scenario. So I'm just going to jump into Arlo. Now, before we actually start running the reports on profitability, what we need to do is actually make sure that the platform is set up to be able to record expenses. And the way that we're going to be doing this is using custom fields. So out of the box, these fields won't exist on your Arlo platform. You will need to create them. So I'm just going to show you how to do that quickly. So if we jump into the settings menu, and then we go down to the platform setup, we've got fields, and we've got courses. So this is where we can actually add or remove any additional fields that we need to store information on each of our individual scheduled courses. So I'm going to open that up. Now I've already set up a couple of fields here because we've got some pre-made scenarios I'm going to be running you through, but in your case, this is likely to have no fields. And so what you want to do is add new fields. And to do that, all you need to do is drag the type of field you want. And in this case, a single line of text is usually the best, and move it into active fields. And here you'll be able to add your field label. Now, I suggest adding 2 fields to start off with. You might want more if you've got a more complex expense model. But in this case, I'm just going to use fixed costs, and then I can save that field. Now, I won't need to do that because I've already got that field saved, so we won't need to worry about that. I'll just cancel that one. And so the idea is that you can do that using using the field editor to build fields for fixed and variable costs. Now, once that's done, what that's going to allow you to do is anytime you set up a new course in Arlo, so we'll just jump through the wizard to show you. You're then going to have this additional information at the bottom here, which is going to allow you to record fixed costs for the course. So this could be for things like, the venue hire, the presenter cost, any other additional fixed costs that you're aware of. And then you've also got variable costs. So this could be, your per head cost for training material and resources that you hand out, as well as catering. So you can pop in your fixed and variable costs. And as I mentioned, you can have additional fields for additional expenses if you need them. That might be relevant for some courses, but not relevant for others. You don't have to add in the expenses at the time of setting the event up. You can also jump into any existing event and simply edit it. And you can use the schedule tab here to go in and change the expenses related to the course. So in this case, this one's already got some, so fixed cost of 200 and a variable cost of 40 per head. So that's great. So what this is then going to allow us to do is when we actually run a report on our events using the advanced event report, I could, for instance, say that I want all of my courses that started within the previous 12 months. So I'll just pop that information in. And I want to know for each of those courses what the fixed cost was, what the variable cost was, and if I've got additional fields, I can add them into this report as well. But I also need to know, because we've got a variable cost, we need to know the number of registrants that came on the course. So I'm going to pop in the registrant count, and that's going to be the current count, because we don't want to include things like cancelled registrations or registrations that haven't been paid for or approved yet. And so we can now preview this report, and I can see all of my courses, when they were, where they were. And on this side here, I've got the information that we just added to the report about our expenses. So I can see what each cost of courses cost me at a fixed cost rate, what the variable costs for each of those courses is, and how many approved registrants we had on each of those courses as well. So using that data, I can then export it. And that's going to tell me half the picture. The other half obviously comes from the performance report, which Nick showed you a bit earlier. So I can open the performance report, I can pop in my date range, and I can run the report to get an idea of the revenue that each of those courses has actually brought in. And so using those two reports now, what I can do is I can actually combine that data. So I'm just going to show you an example that I set up a bit earlier. So basically what I've done is I've extracted the performance report and I've put it on a sheet called revenue. So nice and simple. And I've also extracted the event report with my expenses and I've put it on a sheet called expenses. Now using this data, I've then taken some simple Excel formulas to determine whether or not a course is profitable. So for the expense column, for example, I'm calculating the fixed costs plus the variable cost times the number of registrants on the course to get the overall expense for that course. And that's going to tell me, how much it's costing us to run each of these courses. In the revenue column, I'm using a lookup using the course code here, or the event code. And so we're basically saying, find the course in the revenue list and pull through the revenue that we've generated for that course. So now we have an idea of what our expenses are and what our revenue for the course was in a single source. And then finally, I've used a simple calculation to take the expenses away from the revenue to determine if the course is profitable or not. And so just like that, we can see that anything in the green here, because I've put some conditional formatting on the sheet, is going to tell us if the course is profitable. Anything in the red is going to say that, we've actually lost money in this course. And as a training provider, you can look at this data to say, well, the profitable courses, should we be running more of them? How can we exploit that further? The courses that are not making us any money, why is that? Do we need to cut costs? Are we not marketing it well enough? Do we need to look at reducing venues expenses or catering expenses? What is it that's causing us not to make as much money on these courses as other ones, which is obviously really important for your business. So the scenario is obviously involving a few steps. You've got to make sure the platform is set up and you've got the fields there. Once that's done, you don't need to do it again, which is the great thing about it. And from there on, it's just a case of making sure you're obviously adding the expenses into those fields that you've created. And in terms of running the reports, 2 reports, really simple to do. Suggest saving them as favorites once they're set up. And having a template like this just makes it nice and easy as well, because once you've done it once, you can save the template and simply dump the data onto it, and the calculation fields are going to work it all out for you and give you the information that you need. So hopefully you found that that example really, really useful. So we've looked at reports in Arlo, and we know that they're really good at providing us, as an example, an event list with the number of registrants on that course, or a particular course with a list of the registrants on that course. What we're going to do is take a bit of a deeper dive into that and look at occupancy rates. So there's a couple of really good features inside of Arlo that help you really make the most of this data. So let's just jump into the platform. And if we go across to our course page, for those of you who are quite familiar with the course wizard, you will know that when you're setting up a new course in Arlo, you can specify a minimum and a maximum registration limit. And so the place that this is done is when you're actually going through the course creation process, on the registrations tab of the wizard, right down here at the bottom, you can see registration limits. And so this is where you can actually specify for a course what the minimum number of registrants on the course should be, and what the maximum number of registrants on the course should be. And when the maximum number is reached, that's when Arlo will stop taking registrations for that course and activate the waiting list. There is also a couple of useful features here, which are automated alerts, which you can actually set up to be sent automatically if, for example, the minimum number is not met or the maximum number is met, which is quite neat. Once that's done, in terms of the actual course page, you're going to be able to really clearly see which courses have the min met, which have the min not met. And you've also got these views that you can use as well to quickly filter and see that data in a bit more detail. In terms of the course list pages, just a quick note, you've also got exports which you can use. So if you're ever on your course page and you've applied filters, or you've got into a certain view and you just want to get that data out really quickly, exports is a great way to do that, because it's super fast, and you can do that across the platform as well. So if I was looking at a list of contacts that I'd applied some advanced filters on, I could really quickly just export those out. Or if I was looking at a list of orders, I could do the same thing, and it's going to save me from actually having to go and run a report. Now in this case, because we are looking at reports, I am going to use a report. So I'm going to jump into the event list advanced. And we're going to use the same scenario before. So I'm going to look at the events starting within the previous 12 months. I could use 1 year if I wanted to. And in terms of the field results, what I want to find out what my occupancy rates are. And so I want to know what the minimum registration limit is. I want to know what the maximum registration limit is. And I also need to know the number of registrants on each of those courses. So I'm going to type in the registrant count. And I'm going to use the current plus pending. So what this is basically saying is all approved registrants plus registrants that may be awaiting approval, because there's a good chance those orders are going to be paid. We're not going to cancel those registrations, so they are going to contribute to the occupancy rates of the course. So I'm going to use current plus pending instead of just current, which is essentially approved. And then when I can run this report, I can now extract all this data to use and further manipulate. So just to take a quick look at an example that I prepared a bit earlier, I'm going to jump across into our spreadsheet. So I've dumped in the data that the report has generated for me. I've then just created a couple of quick new columns in this template, which I can use if I save the template moving forward whenever I want. So the first one is minimum met, and it's just going to tell me if the minimum has been met or not. So similar to the filter that we have available in Arlo. And so this is just looking at, is the number of registrants on the course more than the minimum number that we had set? And if it is, make it yes or no. So a nice simple Excel formula there. And this next one here is the one that we're really interested in. This is the occupancy on the course. And so this is telling us, how many people on the course have been registered compared to the maximum number of registrants that we set on that course. So what's our total occupancy? And again, just a nice simple formula that Excel has used to calculate this for me, which is the total number of registrants divided by the maximum count and displaying the results as a percentage there. What we can also do using this data now, as an example, is I've created a total occupancy field, and I've just used an average of all of the occupancy rates across all of the courses that we've run in the last 12 months. And so this is really, really powerful stuff. So as an example, let's pretend that you've spent a truckload more on marketing than you usually would have this quarter. And so running a report like this, you can actually see, well, what is our occupancy rate for the quarter, for the courses that have just been, compared to, say, the last quarter where we didn't have as much investment in our marketing, i.e. is that actually a good return on investment? Are we seeing the numbers come through on our courses? Obviously, lots of other bits and pieces you can do with some information. You can see which of your courses are in most demand, sort by highest occupancy to lowest. Do we need to run more of those courses? Because obviously the customers want to keep coming to them. And on the flip side of that, which of our courses have the lowest occupancy rates? Are there ways that we can actually cut costs there? Do we need to run them as face-to-face courses, or can we run an online trimmed down version of the course at a lower price, which is actually going to be a lot more profitable for us in the long run, because we know the numbers for those courses are historically low. So, it's really just getting creative with all of the data inside of Arlo and finding ways to use it so that you can make, really informed decisions about your training business. Now, obviously, this report that we use to pull the data, the majority of this data, was the same report that we used to pull in our expenses as well. So, if you wanted to get really creative, you could combine all of this into one big, in one big master report, which will provide you information about course profitability, your occupancy rates, your revenue, your expenses, all in one. It's just going to require a bit of work to get that template initially set up, but the value that you'll get from something like that is obviously massive. So in terms of the last scenario that we're going to just jump over and take a look at is going to be our top paying customers. So we're just going to quickly look at a way to extract the list of the customers that are using, you for training the most. They're obviously paying you more than any other customers, because these are the customers that you want to, establish really good relationships with. You want to be reaching out to them to offer them things like, discounts or promotions so that they come back next time. Maybe sell them a training voucher at a, potentially lower price than your standard carded rates to encourage them, to come back for that repeat business. So let's just jump across into the platform now, and we'll show you how you can really quickly extract that list. We're looking for the organizations that are putting through the most orders or providing the most value to our business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the order list report, because that's going to allow me to summarize all of the orders that have been submitted over a period of time. And I'm going to add in my conditions the order created date I'm going to use, because I want to look at orders created over a period of time. So let's say the previous year, as that falls in line with our other examples. But we also want to make sure we don't include any cancelled orders, because that may skew our results. So I'm also going to include a clause for order status, and I'm going to say does not equal cancelled. And so that's going to provide me with all of the orders that I want to review over the past year. And in terms of the results, we can see that the total due is already in there. I'm not too worried about status, so I'll remove that because I know cancelled orders have already been taken out. We've got the total amount of the order, which is tax inclusive. So that's the main figure I'm interested in. I don't really mind if there's a payment still due. I'm going to take that one out. And we've got the bill to organization name there as well. So I can now extract all of that data really easily and export it to Excel. Now, in terms of the raw data sheet that it provides me, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to highlight all of the data, and I'm going to nice and easily insert a pivot table. And so what this is going to let me do is easily manipulate that data. So for example, we're looking for the organizations. So I want to put in the row as an organization, and that's going to list me all of the organizations that have had orders billed to them in the past 12 months. And next, I want to actually take the order total, and I'm going to pop that in the value. So that's going to sum up all of the order totals that have been submitted for a certain organization over a period of time. And so just like that, I can now see really easily how much each organization is worth to our business over the past 12 months in terms of orders that have been submitted. And once it's in this, in this format, you can do what you want with it. You can sort it by highest to lowest, or pull it out and add in the additional details such as the billing contact. But we can clearly see in this example that Design Q is, the #1 organization that's paying for our services. And so that's a really good example of a relationship that we want to encourage and continue to move forward. So hopefully that's another, nice, simple example that you can use to start extracting some of the more valuable information out of the Arlo reporting engine. Now, in terms of what's next, basically, if you haven't already, just get into the reports. Obviously, there's lots there. We've talked about quite a few scenarios today, but it's not until you start using them that you can really derive value from them. So we really do encourage you to just jump in, have a look around, start trying to build some different types of reports. There's an Arlo U module in reports. So if you haven't been into your demo company before, definitely worthwhile jumping into that, using Arlo U to run through the reports module. It's going to take you through some really basic examples. We've got lots of information in our help center about all the different types of reports and what they can be used for to extract, as well as a couple of recipes as well. So the example around the profitability, as an example, there's a step-by-step guide in the help center on how to do that. And also, as I've already mentioned at the start of the webinar, just shout out if you do run into any issues and you need some help, because we are here to help. And yeah, we definitely know that the reporting engine, at first, it can be a little overwhelming, but once you get the hang of it, we think that you'll find it's super simple and super powerful, and will hopefully provide you a lot of value. So thank you once again to everybody who's joined us today, and a big thanks to Nick, who also helped us out at the start of the webinar, running through those key report scenarios, and a big thanks to our support desk as well, who are on standby at the moment, answering any questions that you might have had or been throwing at them. But that's it from me, and I hope that we do hear from you soon. And yeah, looking forward to running the next webinar. See you later.